I think I timed it perfectly on tonight. I just want to say thank you so much for joining us for the Good Fight. We show up here every single Tuesday night from 7 to 8 p.m. to have this conversation at the intersection of faith and social justice. Just want to remind us that this conversation is made possible by Just Talk Consulting, where we do believe that we can learn to live and love differently in order to realize a world where we are more just, more inclusive, a more peaceful, more equitable. It is possible, but only if we shift in the way that we are thinking. And so we believe that just talking about justice allows us to figure out how to act directly and indirectly in ways that will challenge and dismantle the systems that have us bound. So, thank you so much for joining us for the Good Fight. If this is your first time joining us, I want to say thank you for being here. And I wonder, like, how did you find us? Like, who told you to reach out to us? Did you hear something? Like, I'm just interested in the stories. Stories are very powerful and meaningful to me. And so I just want to know your story. It's okay either way. But if you are listening to us for the first time, there are ways that you can engage with the Good Fight. One of the ways that you can engage is to see yourself reflected in a mirror. So something that is said during our time together will resonate in your body on a very deep and personal level where you feel like, yes, I know what this is like. Yes, my body has been here before. Yes, I may not be able to articulate it, but my soul reaches out and grabs it in familiarity. And so that is one of the ways that you can engage. Another way that you can engage is to um, look through a window where somebody else's story is centered. A lot of times we are living in this world based on our own lived experiences, and we have no clue what somebody else is going through. We have no clue how systems are impacting another person. We have no clue what another person is carrying and dealing with and trying to navigate in order to live their best life. And so this allows you to receive as a gift somebody else's offering to the conversation, and that is all we ask you to do, is to receive it as a gift. No obligation, no responsibility. All you have to do is say yes to being open and willing to receive and to hear. Another way that you can engage is to walk through a door. So beyond this moment, we're only going to be here for an hour from 7 to 8 o'clock, if it takes that long. If it doesn't take that long, we'll stop before 8 o'clock. But we're only going to be here for an hour. And so beyond that hour, if you are continuing to think about this, if you are continuing to process this, if you are continuing to have questions about it, then we ask you to pursue that, like to chase it down, engage other people in conversations, ask more questions, inquire about things with me, like write me messages. Like, it doesn't matter. Send me TikToks. Doesn't matter how you pursue more information. The pursuit is what is most important. And then you can also engage by showing up here in the comment section, or when this is not even live, there are some people who are who are unable to be present with us live in this space, but you show up during some other time in the normal rhythm of your life, and that works just fine. And so if you could just let us know by reaching out to us, or you don't have to let us know at all. One of the things that I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse, I'm not really sure how some people interpret it, but because of the way that we are situated here, I don't know who's watching. I don't know who's not watching. I know that people are watching. I can see that you are watching, but I don't know exactly who that is. And it does not matter to me. I'm not interested in learning names and addresses and contact information. If you want me to know who you are, I will be more than happy to have conversation with you. Otherwise, I protect your rights to be free in this space and just observe and just listen and just be. So thank you for joining us for this conversation. I want to say, oh, there's Susanna Sawubona. Thank you so much, Susanna, for introducing to some and to reminding others of the Sawubona. Sawubona is the spirit of oneness in which we gather into this space. Sawubona on its face is a greeting. It simply means hello. But if you dig a little deeper, what it means is I see you. And not just I see you, but we see you. Because I show up as Denise, yes, but I am Denise, who is a product of every one of my ancestors who has gone before me. And so I bring all of them into my space with me. And so that's why I say y'all. And I recognize that you do the same thing. You don't just show up as Susanna. You don't just show up as Norita. You don't just show up as Hotep. You don't just show up the way Arve used to. You show up with all of who has helped to make you who you are. And we see all of you. So we want you to know that this is a space where you can bring your whole self, where you are not judged, where you can be who you have been created and called to be without reservation. That's what the Sawubona invites us to do. And it also challenges us, right? Like just because I say that you are invited into this space, just because I say that I see y'all, doesn't mean that we agree on everything. Doesn't mean that this is some kind of kumbaya moment, but it means that I am willing to come alongside you in the journey of conversation, the journey of newness, the journey of perspective, the journey of lived experience, to say, hey, let's see if we can figure this out together. And so that's what the Sawubona invites us. And if you say yes to the Sawubona, because it is an invitation, then your response is, yay, Bo. So Susanna says Sawubona, and I say, yay, Bo, Sawubona. Yes, I accept the invitation to be one with you in this space. I want to say this before we go on, because I haven't really figured out what to do. I decided, so my mom came back. She spends 6 months with my brothers in Florida, and she spends 6 months with me here in Arkansas. And she came back in June to be with me. And one of the things that we used to do is say, okay, let's get back. Like, let's get back into the normal rhythm. And I realized that that doesn't work. We have to create a new rhythm every time that we share space together. So as we are trying to find our new rhythm, we haven't quite locked in on it yet, but as we are trying to find our new rhythm, I am making sure that she goes to see every one of her doctors. This system of healthcare is just interesting to me. I remember when I used to go to one doctor. I remember I used to go to one doctor, and that one doctor would treat my whole body. But the way that we have structured things now is that we have a doctor for everything. So my mother has a series of doctors who you would think would be working as a team to give her the very best care, but they actually don't talk to each other. So we have to go to the endocrinologist, who is her for her diabetes. We have a nephrologist for her kidney disease. We have a PCP for her general medical needs. We also have a podiatrist, and we also have a cardiologist. We have all of these ists to help her with her care. And one of the ists that service her is a phlebotomist. And I've noticed over the time that we've been there that there is a certain gift that some phlebotomists have. Not everybody can get the blood, pull the blood from her veins in order to run the lab test to let us know where she is with her protein, with her AC, the A1C, like all of these things that we are monitoring. We want to know her phosphorus levels. Like there's so much that we have to pay attention to, and we need the blood to be tested in order to yield the results to help us understand that. And there are, in just the mention of the words lab work makes my mother's anxiety levels increase. It sends her blood pressure running into the sky. And so there are some people where we have actually had to say, look, this is not your gift. And it's okay. We need you to just write the order. We will go somewhere else and have them draw this blood. But there are some people who enter the room, and just by their very presence, they are able to calm her down. They are able to put her at ease. They are laughing and giggling and talking. And before she knows it, they've already pulled 7 vials of blood. She hasn't even realized what is happening to her. And there are other people where we just cannot deal with you. And so because of that, I have decided that I'm going to become a phlebotomist. I just want to be that calming presence for folks that assists with, in a very positive way, the care of a person's body. Like when we talk about liberation, what does that look like? Does it look like just talking about faith? Yes, it looks like talking about faith, but it also looks like showing up in the street. It also looks like writing letters to your legislators. It also looks like being a teacher. It also looks like becoming a counselor. And for me, it looks like becoming a phlebotomist. And so I will be in class starting tomorrow for the next 5 weeks at night. from 5:45 to 9:45. So I didn't know whether to suspend the good fight, like we just won't have it for the next 5 weeks because I wanted to go in the morning, but I can't. Or should I do like recorded conversations and then you can send me a message? Like, I'm really not sure. And if you have a comment about it, I'll be interested in entertaining what you think. Should we just take a break? Hey, take a 5 week break? I don't know. And so I'll try to figure that out. And I'm interested in what your thoughts are. But for the next 5 weeks starting tomorrow, and I'm pretty excited about it. I just want to I want to be part of the team that cares for the body in whatever way and however that looks. So I try to care for the body with this conversation about how we interact with each other, motivated and guided by our faith. I want to care for people and how I challenge all the time the system of white inhumanity. I want to care for bodies in the way that I work with children after school, helping them to see who they are and to own their divinity and to understand the power that they have with their voices no matter how young they are. I want to show up and be a part of the conversation and part of the fight when we talk about DEI, when we gather people together to have courageous conversations about what it means to see someone else from their perspective based on who they are with their identity. So whatever way that I can figure out how to find myself very present and very fully present in this struggle toward collective liberation, that's what I'm willing to do. And right now it looks like phlebotomy. So that happens tomorrow. So I don't know. I don't know what I'll send a message either way. Like if I'm not going to show up, I'll say, hey, I'm not showing up. But if I'm going to record the sessions, I'll let you know that too. But I just wanted to be open and honest and transparent and vulnerable about the steps that I am making and to share with you my excitement. I'm going to be a phlebotomist. I got my scrubs today. I got my book today, and I start tomorrow. We're going to continue this conversation today about inhumanity in the Bible. Not the Bible as inhumane, but inhumanity in the Bible. There was a man who came and visited us. He is a scholar. He is an activist. He is a survivor of apartheid in South Africa. He is unapologetic. He is Black. He is all of those things that I look up to as it relates to what it means to show up in a very real and tangible way in this fight towards justice for all. And I got to be honest with you, I do struggle some with interracial relationships, and I want somebody to help me. And I have a friend named Phyllis Brown. She's been trying to help me with this. But when we talk about social justice, when we talk about the issues that Black people in particular face, the issues that we face are all rooted in racism, and that racism that we feel in the United States, not the racism across the world is rooted in this, but the racism that we experience in the United States is sourced in this idea that white people are superior to Black people. And so trying to figure out how we can coexist, trying to figure out how we can live together, love each other, and serve each other in a way that honors the humanity of us all. Like that is the goal. That is my goal. And I try to figure out, like, how do you do that when you are in relationship with people who are benefactors of a system that oppresses you? And I know that love is love. I'm not arguing that fact at all. But for me, love is also a decision. And what do you all think? Like, is love a decision for you? Or is it that you believe that, because I've heard several stories. I always talk about this song by Tweets. She says, oops, there goes my shirt up over my head. Oh my. So like she doesn't have any control. Like I get with you and I lose all of my thinking abilities. I lose my ability to reason and to be logical in this moment. Like all I can do is feel, and it doesn't matter what's happening outside of this moment. Like this moment is the only thing that is important to me, the only thing that is significant to me. So I'm going to give myself over to the moment. And so some people feel like love is that. I don't feel that. I feel like love is a choice. I feel like you come together with a person and I actually feel like there are precursors, the prerequisites to even coming together with a person to decide whether or not that you see this as a viable option to be in relationship. Can I be in relationship with you? Should I be in relationship with you? What is this relationship going to look like? So there's this negotiation that happens to say, yes, we are going to do this. Yes, we're going to stand together. Yes, we're going to fight. Yes, we're going to do whatever it takes to be one. And so I think that that is a conversation. So I think that it's an intelligent decision that we make. And so we are. And so I feel like we are forced to have that conversation. So Alan Buzak, in all of this advocacy and activism that he is doing to dismantle the system of apartheid in South Africa, when he came to visit us, after his talk, we went out to eat and there was his white wife. And I just was thrown. I'm just not gonna lie about that. I just did not expect that to happen. And so the question for you, if you want to engage, is whether or not you believe that love is an emotion that overtakes you, that you just don't have any control over. Like it's just something that happens in your body, the butterflies, the smile across your face, the giggles that you get, like all of that, just like you give yourself over to that feeling. And whoever gives you that feeling, that's who you want to journey with. Or if you feel like, wait a minute, I'm going to stop and think about this. I'm going to have a Selah moment where I pause and calmly think about, is this something that I would like to do? And I'm not sure that this would be, regardless of the emotions that I'm feeling, I'm not sure that this is what is best for me. So I'd be interested to know where you fall on that love scale, where you are on the spectrum of how people fall in love, and whether or not we should be emotionally driven by our love or intellectually driven, or like maybe it's a combination of both. Like, I don't know. We got Miss Noita in the house. Ooh, ooh, Noita in the house. Ooh, ooh. I don't think that T is going to show up tonight. We actually had a very we had a very traumatizing experience in at the urgent care center. We went to get T's hearing checked, because living with her, listening to how she talks, like listening to how loud she talks, listening to how loud the TV is, watching her do this when I'm talking to her, especially in the car. Like you can see her pull forward and she's like, I gotta position myself. I can hear her from another room saying to the person, I can't hear you on the phone. What you say? Hello? Hello? And so I said, you need to get your ears checked. And so we went to get our ears checked, and it shows that she has a massive impact, right? Like her ears are impacted with a lot of wax. And so what we need to do is just remove that wax. It's sitting here, and so we want to remove it. However, it's been sitting there for so long that it's hard. And so because it's hard, we need I call them the audiologists. They don't call themselves audiologists, but they don't do that work in the office anymore. They actually send you somewhere else to have it done because of liability. And so they sent us, or they suggested that we go to urgent care called the Med Express, which was right down the street from the audiologist. And we went there, and it was just not a good experience at all, to the point where they asked us to leave. They like, if you don't leave, we're going to have you removed, which for Black people, when you say have me removed, that means that you're going to call the law. Right? You're going to call law enforcement. And for our bodies, we know that we don't generally, all the time, we are not going to survive an encounter with the police. And so it is this situation where I know for me, I felt helpless in this moment, because I was ready to shut it all the way down. But then I was also thinking about, like, I don't mind you calling the cops on me. I'm willing to give my life, to put my body on the line. I might die, but I want to die speaking up for what's right. But I don't want to put my mom in that position, because that's not her ideology, right? My mama is 86 years old. She comes from a different generation where you do not, right? You do not upset white people. You do not put yourself in a position to challenge law enforcement or to give them control over your life. And so I'm just sitting here like wondering what to do. And so I just don't do anything, right? Like I let them say, you got to go. And I'm like, okay, we got to go. And now I'm just looking for a recourse, right? Which is what what I think legislation is supposed to be about. I don't think that we're supposed to legislate um, justice. I really don't, because you cannot control another person's mind. You cannot control another person's behavior. So I expect there to be some level of discrimination, some level of stereotyping, some level of dehumanization. Like I expect there to be, because of the world that we live in. People have been conditioned, right? Like we have implicit bias that causes us to treat people a certain way. And so that I know that there are times when that is inevitable. But I do want there to be laws on the books that give us a recourse. Because you treated me this way, then I can go to the law and say, hey, here is where I should be able to find justice. That is not what's happening in our midst, but I feel like that is the way that it should be. And so now I'm looking for that recourse. Like, how do I find justice in this moment? And I know that it traumatized my mom, and I know that it is something that she is still processing. And so she's in the bed. If she gets up, that's fine, but I doubt that she will, because I just think that she's exhausted, because there's so many triggers in what happened today for us as we were at the Med Express. And I do want you to know that she did not get service. So we still got to find somebody to get this wax out of her ear. So I might just call the PCP and go from there. But she is not here. And so here we are in this moment to talk about what brought me here today, to talk about inhumanity in the Bible. Not the Bible is inhumane, but inhumanity in the Bible, talking about how we view people and what our expectations are of folks, especially when we take a look at them and when we learn a little bit about their situation. And so I know for a fact, based on how things played out at the Med Express Center, that it was our Black bodies that were not deemed worthy by the nurse practitioner. That was the root of how we were treated. And that just it didn't lead me to this story that we're going to focus on out of Luke chapter 21, but it does enhance the conversation. And I just love the way the universe works. Like, I didn't know this was going to happen when I was thinking about Luke 21, but it just worked out that way. So I do want to just hold some space for my mom as she is sleeping and trying to just deal with all that we have gone through. I also want to hold space for Hotep. There are several of you who show up on the regular in the comment section as we are having these conversations, and one of them is Hotep. And Hotep called me today, and he wanted to let me know that he's going to be out of pocket for a while. And I'm like, what's going on with you? Hotep is already living as an amputee. He has one leg, and that leg is a result of a military injury that he re-injured because it was not healed properly. And so as a result of that, he had to have his leg amputated. And now, as he has continued to live in this life with one leg, he realizes that he sees the same signs, that warning signs, the caution signs that say, oh my goodness, this is coming. And so he's been fighting for some time without me even knowing the amputation of his second leg. And so he was supposed to go in today. He went in today around 2:00. And it is my understanding from talking to him that his leg will be amputated today. It may not be amputated today, but it will be amputated before he comes back home. Right. And so just sitting with him, just pausing for just a moment to think about that. Right. Pausing for just a moment just to honor the sacredness of his body, and to think about what this change will mean for him, and to think about those of us who have not had to consider. Here we are, right, with looking through a window where this is someone else's story that we are gifted to receive. We have no responsibility for it, but we receive it as gift to be able to say, let me just sit with you, what I consider to be who is that in the Bible? Oh my goodness, I can't believe I can't think of the Bible where the devil is negotiating his life. What is his name? And he loses all of his children, he loses all of his livestock, he loses his wife. I just want to sit, and his friends come from all around, and they are just going to sit with him for the first 7 days. They just sit there, and they're just, Job. I had a moment. So I feel like this is our Job moment with Hotep, where we are called to gather from all of the corners where we come from Nebraska, from Louisiana, from Mississippi, from Arkansas, from all of the places where we gather from. Where's my cousin? In North Carolina. My brothers are in Florida. So all the people that I know are watching this, that we gather together in this space just to sit with you, just to sit with you. So I do want to pause for just a moment and think about Hotep, because we are just sitting with him as he goes through the amputation of his second leg. Right. And to figure out how we can be in support of him. And it's always interesting to me because we do this on a regular basis, especially those of us who profess to be Christian, where we want to put other people's lives in front of ours. And so I'm talking to him about what's going on with his legs, and he's asking me about my mom. I'm like, yeah, my mom is fine, but what support do you need? I'm gonna be all right. What your mom need? Right. And so it's just this, I guess it's a humility is what it's supposed to look like. But for me, I feel like it's a dismissal of what's happening in our own lives. I don't believe we're supposed to compare each other's lives. I don't think that we're supposed to say, well, whatever I'm going through, somebody else is going through something worse. That's a conversation I had a couple of days ago when I sat down to dinner with Pam. And I'm just like, I really don't I'm not concerned about what's happening with another person right now. I want to sit with, I want to hold sacred with what's happening in my body, in my mind, in my spirit, in my soul. That doesn't mean I'm not concerned about the other person. This is not a zero-sum game, but there are things that need attention in my own life, and I want to give them that attention. And I don't want to feel like just because I'm giving them that attention that I am not feeling blessed, or that I'm not feeling, or I'm not understanding, or are living into life as a collective with other folks. And so I know that Hotep was trying his best to care for my mom, but I just wanted to care for him in that moment. So I did want to take a second for us to just pause and think about him as he, I don't know, maybe he's lost his leg already. So, our conversation today is rooted in the text found in Luke chapter 21. And what I've been thinking about ever since I sat down with National Chess Master Tony Davis to talk about what it means to play chess. I've always thought about playing chess. I've always wondered about playing chess. I've always been interested in playing chess, but I've never really decided, okay, this is what I'm going to do until a couple of weeks ago. So I've been having this conversation with a man who is living in Arkansas, who is the national chess master. And he was talking to me about the importance of chess. He was talking about how it is such a wonderful life lesson that can help guide us through the steps that we need to take in order to be free and stay free and gain our liberation. He talks about the sadness, but the structural, the systemic design that most Black folks, particularly Black men, do not learn the game of chess until they're already incarcerated. So you're in a situation now where you're learning about how to think forward, think through your next steps, but you're basically stuck. You might get out, you might not. But what if we were teaching this in the elementary schools? What if we were teaching this in our homes? What if we were teaching this in our churches? What if we were teaching this as a community, this need for us to learn how to think through, how to think beyond, how to fight, how to develop fighters, how to counterattack, how to understand that you are under attack? Like, what if we were teaching this on a regular basis so that it becomes the norm in our lives, and our children are positively affected by this new way of thinking and this new way of being critical, of engaging critical analysis in their daily lives? And so we're having this conversation, and I'm learning about chess for the very first time. I still have not played a complete game because the game that I tried to play, I was making all kinds of mistakes. And bless National Chess Master Tony Davis's heart. He was trying so hard not to be like, good, you making mistakes. But I am that one, right? Like, that's what you need to say to me, babe. Look, boo boo. Hunty, Denise, whatever words you want to use, like this is not good. And so finally, he had to say to me that I'm setting up a false sense of security and that I'm not going to be able to reach my goals if I'm not willing to fight and if I'm not willing to develop myself as a fighter in this system in which we exist, where there are people who are coming for us at all times. The system of whiteness, the system of white inhumanity is coming for all of us at the same time right now. And it's not just Black people, it's not just people of color, but people who are identified as white in this country. You are also victims of, being victimized by, you are prey to the system of white inhumanity. And that is something that we don't talk about enough. And so we're having this conversation and I'm really learning, I'm really feeling good, but then somebody else walks up on the game. His name is Leonard. And so I asked Leonard, do you know how to play chess? And he says, expertly. So I'm like, okay. And so I move out of the way and I say, I want to watch the two of you play. I just want to watch. I just want to see. I want to watch this game unfold. And so as they were playing chess, they were talking in a way that let me know that some of the players on the field, some of the pieces on the board have more value than others. I did not know that at first because remember, I'm learning the game. And so so they are talking about it. And so I'm interrupting there. I know they probably wish I hadn't been there, but I had already told National Chess Master Tony Davis that I learn best by asking questions. Like I really need the freedom to ask a question, and that helps me to learn, helps me to understand. And he was like, I'm okay with that. So they allowed me to stop them, and I tried to be strategic in my stopping, like not like right there, like after a move, after somebody had captured a piece, I would say, hold on, let's talk about what just happened here. And so because of their conversation, I said, it sounds like there are pieces that have more value than others, and that is absolutely the case. Pawns are worth 1 point, bishops and knights are worth 3 points, rooks are worth 5 points, queens are worth 9 points. And so I began to think about that. And I'm like, wait, where do we get this idea that we want to place a value on the pieces on this board? I think that it is rooted on how we place value on the bodies in the caste system that we have created throughout this entire world that we live out every day in this particular country. Just because I'm a U.S. citizen, I'm thinking about this country specifically, but that we have bodies that we feel like are only worth 1 point, bodies that we feel like, oh no, you're worth 9 points. And so talking about that value and how we interact with people based on that value, that has been something that has been first and foremost in my mind ever since I started having this conversation about learning how to play chess. And it showed up today when we were having our conversation on the air, Community Voices. And it's on, for those of you who are not able to watch Community Voices at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, it shows up live on my feed where we're having conversations about all manner of social justice as it relates to Black folks in particular. And so we were talking about the people on the submersible, so the 5 lives that were lost from those people who wanted to see and view and experience the wreckage of the Titanic that was sunk, I don't even know how many years ago, but people are still fascinated with their story. So they paid $250,000. They were on this excursion. They go down to see this Titanic and something goes left and they end up missing. And then the whole world mobilizes to find these bodies. And I began to think about how, I didn't begin to think about it until I read an article. So I was reading articles about how much money it costs the taxpayers for these agencies to mobilize to find these folks. And it made me feel some kind of way because these are rich people. These are the wealthy folks who I believe had the money to include in their project budget search and rescue. I feel like it should have been a line item, $250,000 to go down here and see this wreckage, $100,000 for search and rescue, $50 for food and drink. Like, I just feel like there should have been an itemized budget, and part of recovering your body, because you know that this is a risk that you are taking, should have been included. And I was trying to make my case for that, but my brother, but he was not hearing it. He did not receive it at all. But what his feedback, what his challenge, what But his pushback to my conversation caused me to think about is the fact that when we stop for just a moment and consider how the world responds to bodies, when white people or rich people in this case, because not everybody was white, there was a father and son who I would consider to be brown. They were a part of this excursion, but they were rich. So because of classism and racism, we automatically just immediately responded and said, we've got to find these missing bodies. But I can go on Black Missing, blackandmissing.com. Like, there is an entire 501c3 organization that is dedicated to raising the awareness of the fact that when Black bodies and brown bodies, when Black bodies go missing, there isn't this same level of engagement. So we are being treated the same way that we treat pieces on the chessboard. Like, you are a pawn, so you only worth 1 point. So we might get around to you after a while. In this case, when we talk about missing Black bodies, we'll get around to you after we consider whether or not you are a runaway. We'll get around to you after we consider whether or not your body is, we should criminalize your body. We'll get around to you after we decide whether or not we have enough resources to give over to this effort. So we are not thought about in those first critical moments when people go missing, or even when there is a homicide. Those first 48 hours, that's why you've got shows like The First 48. And so those first 48 hours are crucial in making sure that we are setting ourselves up for success to find these missing bodies. But for the case of Black folks, we don't engage immediately. We do not mobilize immediately because we are not willing to sacrifice. We are not willing to interact in a way that says your body matters to me. So there's a value that we place on you the same way that we do in this chess game. And so I was thinking about that because that's what I've been thinking about for the last couple of weeks. And then thinking about this system of this Bible, the inhumanity in the Bible, I was like, is there a story where we place value, that the inhumanity in the Bible is rooted in the value or the lack of value that we place on a body? And I'm not sure the answer to that is yes, but I can tell you what I found. And what I found was Luke chapter 21. And so I want to have this conversation about this particular body so that you can help me think through whether or not you believe that this is inhumane, because it's up for consideration. I'm really working on my facial expressions, and I'm really working on my own biases, because sometimes I'll ask a question like, do you really think that? Which isn't a fair question, because I've already signaled to you what I think your answer should be. So I want to remain objective, and I want you to have the space to come up with your own, to draw your own conclusions. So all of this is supposed to be offered up as consideration. You tell me what you think. You might agree, you might disagree, and all of that should be okay. But in Luke chapter 21, we are dealing with two different types of people. Two different classes of people. That's what we're dealing with. And so the way that the Bible responds to them, I think, signals to us about value. And I really believe that much of what we are experiencing in this world as it relates to discrimination and dehumanization is rooted in the Bible, which is rooted in racism and capitalism and sexism and homophobia and definitely transphobia. So I want to read for us Luke chapter 21. I'm just going to read. I think I'm only going to read verses 1 through 4. It might be 1 through 3, it might be 1 through 4, but I know it's not like 5 verses. And I want to pause after that. So I want to read. I want to pause for us to Selah, Selah, pause, and calmly think about it. And then I want to invite us into conversation about what we have read, and to see if you are feeling the things that I am offering up for conversation, offering up for consideration, deliberation on this day. So, Miss Luella says she's at the UMC conference. I didn't know. What? It's June 20th. I didn't even realize the conference was happening today. It's good to see you, Miss Luella. Y'all see her right here. It's good to see you Tell John I said hello. They are such the cutest couple. You should see she's a fashionista, baby. You should see them walk into a room together. They command attention just by their very presence. Like, I love that. I love that. It's nice to hear from you. Thanks so much for making your presence known. And so I want to read for us Luke chapter 21, verses 1 through 3, I think, and then we'll go from there. Oh, 1 through 4. And he looked up and saw the rich putting their gifts into the treasury. And he saw also a certain poor widow putting in 2 mites. So he said, truly I say to you that this poor widow has put in more than all. For all these out of their abundance have put in offerings for God. But she out of her poverty put in all the livelihood that she had. Two classes of people. We've got rich people and we've got a poor widow. Both of them are in this worship experience, whatever that looks like. And worship did not look the same then as it looks now. What are the differences between worship? I'm not really sure about this particular time. So I don't want to lock myself in on this time so somebody can come back and say, you don't know what you're talking about. So I'm not sure. But I do know that when we think about the history of being a worshiper of God, a worshiper of Yahweh, a worshiper of the way, one of the things that we have learned over the course of time is that when people did get to the point that they gathered in a space, they would stand up. There were no seats, there were no chairs, there were no pews. They would stand up and they would receive there was one person at the front who would be reciting the word, and that the worship would come just from the power of the word that's being read into the presence of people. That it wasn't about a preacher who was spinning this gospel. It wasn't about a preacher who was being charismatic and entertaining. It wasn't about a preacher who was spinning around and jumping down and lifting up his leg and holding his ear. That's not what the church was about. It was the very power. First of all, it was the very power of being gathered into this space, that all of us have come together. We have sacrificed along the way to make this journey together, to get to this place where we believe by faith that we are in the presence of the Most High God, not in the presence of Jesus, not in the presence of Buddha, not in the presence of Jehovah, yes, in the presence of Jehovah, but not any particular name other than Yahweh. And that was a name that wasn't even spoken. So we did not even feel that we had the authority to speak God's name, because God is just that sacred. God is just that holy. We won't even say the name. And so we believe that we have come to this place because all of us are gathered, understanding that there's power in this moment. And so we show up here in this space together, and then somebody unrolls the scroll, and we're just going to read what thus says the Lord. We're just going to read it. And that we feel fed. We feel filled. We feel holy. We feel like we're standing on sacred. Let me take off my sandals. Let me take off my shoes, because we are standing on holy ground just to be able to be present in the word of God that has not been tainted by the interpretation of that word, but just the word, just to believe that this is what God has said to us. And so they would stand. And as the word was being read, they would lift their arms. And not only would they lift their arms, they would put themselves in the most vulnerable position. So the most vulnerable position that we can put ourselves in is to expose our necks, right? So that we can not try to, like right now, I'm protecting my neck because I got my chin right here. So it's going to be hard for you to get exactly to that hyoid bone, right? Like, no, but we expose our necks. So we raise our arms and we lift our heads so that all of this is exposed, because if somebody was to come and hit us like that, it'll kill us. But we are so excited about being in the presence of God that I want to give my whole self of I want to give you my most vulnerable self in this moment so that I'm not worried about being killed in this space. I'm not worried about being harmed in this space. All I want is to experience the communal. I want to have a communal experience of being one, the Sawubona of worship is what I want to experience. And so this time we've got these rich people and this poor widow. So now we've lost that. We've lost those kinds of understandings of what it means to show up for worship, just like we've lost it today. And we are now in a space where you got the rich people and the poor people. So we've already divided folks by class. Like, how do you know these people are the rich people and this is the poor person? Like, how do you know that? Is it because of how she looks? Is it because of her clothes? Like, you've got people even now who are hesitant to go to church because they feel like they don't have the right thing to wear, because they know that they're going to be judged based on their attire. We did that to folks. God didn't do that. Why would you do that? And then we lift up the people in the church that can give the most. We write their names on plaques. We say their name out loud. I went to a TD Jakes conference one time and they actually had lines. Like, if you giving $1,000, you get in this line. If you giving $500, you come down this aisle. If you got $100, you come over here. And those of you who just giving in whatever you can give, you get over on this line. Right? Like, we begin to separate people based on their finances, based on their identities, based on their classes. That's what we do. That's not what God does. But this particular worship experience is about two classes. You got the rich and you got the poor. And the rich people are just freely giving, freely giving, freely giving. And this woman who is considered to be a poor widow, this is according to the scripture that we read, these verses, she's poor and she has 2 coins, 2 mites, 2 coins. And that's all that she has. That's her entire livelihood. So once I give these 2 coins, I have nothing. That's the situation that the poor widow is in. However, the rich people, I'm actually giving out of my overflow. So after I give to you, I lose nothing. I'm not hurting in any way. I still have gas money. I still have grocery money. I still have money to pay my light bill. I still have money to buy me a little something that I just want on the side. I still have money to give my children an iPhone or the latest. Are people still wearing Jordans? Like, I don't know. Like, I still have money to do the things that I want to do. And so giving of my offering, I don't know if they wanted to call it a tithe, or my tithe and my offering, it does not hurt my pocket at all. The rich people, that's on this side. But this woman, once I give, I got nothing. I can't pay my rent. I can't pay my bus fare. I can't put food on the table. I can't put clothes on my children's back. I can't put food on their feet. I mean, shoes on their feet. I can't do anything because I've given you my all. And that's what's happening here. And the way that this scripture is written is it says, but we want to praise the widow. Look at her. Look at how the scripture, the verses say she gave more than anybody. Because she's giving not just her money, she's giving her faith, she's giving herself, she's giving her belief, she's giving her convictions, she's giving her everything over to this system of religion, hoping that her faith will somehow heal her situation. The other people who got the money, they're like, I'm gonna give it to you, but it ain't costing me nothing. So it's like, whatever. And I think that that's inhumane for the church to say that I want you to come and give me everything you have so that you now have nothing. You can't feed yourself. You can't feed your children. I want you to go home and wait on the Lord. I want you to go home and trust that somebody's going to bring you some groceries. I want you to go home and believe by faith. Faith come by No, no, no. We walk by faith and not by sight. I can't see where it's going to come from. I can't see the money that's going to pay my rent. I can't see the money that's going to keep my gas on. I can't see that money, but I'm just trusting and believing that it's going to be okay. That the church says it is all right for you to give me everything that you have so that you are now destitute, waiting on the Lord. While the rich people, you say, yeah, I see you giving, but I ain't gonna count that because you got other stuff. What? If anything, I would think that the church would say to the rich, give your money to this widow. If you got money that you can basically just throw around, like it's no big deal. I'm giving out of my excess. I'm giving out of my overflow. Then give to the widow. Don't take the widow's money. Let the widow take the richest money and let the rich freely give it to the widow so that the widow will be able to have her basic needs met. We're not even getting to the point where we're talking about buying a purse or going shopping. Right now, we're just talking about basic needs being met. I remember when I was a pulpit pastor, there was this woman in the congregation. Her name was Sarah Elizabeth, and she had the biggest heart. I think I've talked about her before. If not, shame on me. And people would come to her all the time because they knew she had a big heart. So they would come to her and say, I can't pay my bills. I can't pay my rent. I can't buy this phone. Like whatever it is that they felt like they needed, they would come to her knowing that her heart was big enough to say, okay, she would want the money back. Don't get me wrong. She would enter into a verbal agreement, not a written agreement, but a verbal agreement that says, hey, when I'm going to give you this, and when you're able to pay me back, pay me back. Right. But the people that were borrowing money from her not always intended to pay her back. Sometimes they did, and life happened and they weren't able to pay her back when they said that they would. And so she would end up being the one coming into my office saying, I need help with my rent, with my mortgage. She actually owned a home. I need help with my mortgage. I need help with my groceries. I need help with my dog food. Yeah, it was dogs, not cats. I'm pretty sure it was dogs, not cats. Like I cannot function because I have given my last in service to God by giving it to people who are in need. And one day I had a conversation with her and I began to preach. That's what I would do. I would have conversations in my office that would turn into sermons. I would not divulge anything that happened in the office, but I would begin to seek out these verses of scripture, these texts that would help me teach a lesson, because I felt like Sarah Elizabeth wasn't the only one who needed to learn what thus says the Lord as it relates to our finances. And so I would say to her that it is God's design that you give out of your overflow. So part of this text, I absolutely agree with. I'm actually on the text is on the side of the widow, but I'm on the side of the rich folks. I'm giving you out of my excess. Because I have more, I give more. Because I am in a position to be one who is a lender and not the borrower, then that is what I'm going to do. Because I know that I'm not going to miss a meal. Because I know that my lights are not going to get cut off. Because I know that my mortgage is going to get paid. I don't mind giving you what you need. I don't mind putting food on your table. I don't mind putting shoes on your feet. I don't mind putting a roof over your head, because I'm living in excess, and I'm not going to charge you for it. I'm not going to charge you no interest. We're not going to have to go to the fine. I freely give benevolently to your cause, which is to live with integrity. I want everybody to make sure that you are not feeling like you are groveling for what is rightfully yours. It is rightfully ours to be able to feed ourselves. Food should not be something that we fight for, right? A roof over our head is not something that we should have to fight for. Adequate health care is not something that we should have to fight for. This is what should be rightfully mine. I deserve this as human. And if you are setting up systems that don't allow me to have my basic needs met, then shame on you. This system does not work. And so don't praise me for giving you everything that I have and then sitting back saying, well, I'm believing by faith. The Lord gonna make a way. Lord, do it. I just found that music I got rid of my my piano bench. I found this wood. I mean, it's beautiful. It's this beautifully carved wooden bench that I saw in Ross Dress for Less. And I was like, oh, I want this so badly, but what am I going to do with it? I can't do anything with it. I'm trying not to have stuff just to be having stuff, but what can I do with it? And I was like, oh my goodness, it can be my piano bench. And so I decided to make it my piano bench, and I was going to get rid of the actual bench that came with the piano. I've had this piano since I feel like I was 12. And so I was going through the bench to make sure that I kept all of the music, and one of the songs is Lord Do It. Lord, do it for me. And many of us, that's our prayer. We get to the end of our rope and we say, we can't go any further. Like when I was sitting there with my mom in this Med Express, I couldn't go any further. Once they played the race card, once they played the power card, there was nothing that we can do. All we can do in this moment is trust in the process. Now, I feel like the process ain't got nothing to do with God. It's the process they're going to set up to file complaints. But for those of you who believe that the process begins and ends with God, then I got to trust the process. So I want the Lord to do it. Lord, fix it for me. But we give over to God things that people can do. I don't need the Lord to fix whether or not the rich people give money to those who are in need. We can do that as people. Regardless of our belief system, I can decide that because I have so much, it is right. It is my responsibility to humanity to share, to distribute, to give freely and willingly, asking nothing in return. And so I think it is inhumane for us to continue to ask people who are in our churches, in our congregations, in our gathering spaces. We're asking the very people who have nothing to give more. And we're not asking the people who have more to give at all. When we think about the laws that are centered around taxes, especially as they relate to businesses, you talk about Amazon, you talk about Google, you talk about Apple, you talk about all of these places where they are making millions and millions of dollars off of the backs of the poor widows, and you don't tax them. And then the poor widows who set up their own businesses, they are taxed at $10,000 a pop for 1 year. That is inhumanity that's sourced in the Bible, where the rich are not expected to give what they can to those who are in need freely and willingly without expecting anything in return. I find that to be inhumane. And I'm asking us, those of us who go to church, I'm asking us to do it in the church context. Those of us who have family members, if you think about your family, there are some people who are rich and some people who are widows who only have the widow's mites. How are we distributing those funds within our family? You have churches. It's a church right here. This is 23. I came here in 15. 3 minus 5 is 8. 13 minus 5 is 8. 8 years ago, the pastor made $750,000 a year. While you had people in the congregation who did not have transportation. You had people in the congregation who were making minimum wage, right? And so how do you redistribute those funds? What would that look like? So when we talk about the school system, and you got teachers who are coming out of their pockets to pay for supplies for their classroom because the system in the district says we can't afford it. Why can't you afford it? When you have a federal government that says we can pay for war, but we can't pay for healthcare. Like all of that is inhumane, and it's sourced in this idea that we want the people who have the least to pay the most because the Bible says so. And so when we begin to view the Bible through that lens, then the Bible becomes inhumane. This is inhumanity in the Bible, and we must challenge it. It is not the way I believe that God has called us to interact with each other. God has created us to be in communion with one another. If we think about the first church, which was in Acts, they came together and they pooled their resources. So they distributed all of their resources so no one had lack. There should not be any hungry among us. There should not be anyone hungry among us. There should not be anyone unsheltered among us. There should not be anyone unclothed among us. There should not be anyone uninsured among us. There should not be anyone who does not have clothes and shoes on there. There should not be. Not if we pool our resources and redistribute the wealth so that all of us live. the abundant life that we were promised in John 10:10. John 10:10 says, "It is the thief who has come to kill, steal, and destroy. But I, Jesus says, have come that you might have life and that more abundantly." And in other verses, it says, "I have come that you might have life and that you can live it to the full." I can't live my life to the full if I'm worried about where my next meal is coming from. So for me to be rich and deprive somebody of the abundant life, the same abundant life that I was promised, what's the difference between my abundant life and yours? Nothing. And there should be no barriers for either one of us to that abundant life. But you rich people are allowed to create barriers for us. And when I say rich, I'm talking about anybody who is living in an overflow. Yeah. All of your needs are met and you got some. That's what I mean by rich. I'm not talking about the Oprahs. I'm not talking about the athletes. I'm not talking about the what is that man? Good job, somebody's job. Can't even think tonight. That's what I'd like for us to consider. The Bible as inhumane, the inhumanity in the Bible that suggests that we should give our last so that we have nothing and sit back and wait on a God that depends on people who do not feel the need to step up. How do we fix that? Look at your situation, look at your context, see what you can do. I'm sure there's something that you can do, even if it's just to notice it. Thank you so much for joining us for The Good Fight. We'll be right back here on next Tuesday. It sounds like we're going to be back here on next Tuesday, but it'll probably be a recording because I will be in class for the next 5 weeks. I hope y'all are excited for me because I'm super excited. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll see y'all when I see y'all. Bye.